Yo, what is going on, people? Good to see you. I hope y'all are having a fantastic day. Now, this isn't the Nintendo Switch video that I mentioned a few uploads back that I was going to be making this week. It's something that I am recording pretty much on the fly to address a recent controversy, if you will, and I'm using the quotation bunny ears because it's the internet and not everything is really a controversy. It just kind of gets blown out of epic proportions, and hey, we got to talk about it because it's kind of important, especially if you are a gamer in the community, and this has to do with the topic of port begging. Now, I've done many a video on the Nintendo Switch. If you haven't checked out my channel by now, you guys know I freaking love the system. I've owned it for roughly 3 months now, and I've surpassed a healthy library of games. But even though I love the Nintendo Switch and I want to see every single game under the sun show up on the platform, I am also a realist. I keep myself in check about what the system is and about what developers really want to get out of Nintendo Switch. And the controversy I'm referring to has to do with the developer behind A Hat in Time. And they've received a ton of controversy from a very small but vocal minority. I gotta bring this up right now because I know people are gonna comment down below about this. Like, it's not everyone in the Switch community. Yes, I know, hashtag not all Switch owners. But it is relevant because this type of mindset is not really productive at all, especially if we want to get some of these games like A Hat in Time on Nintendo Switch. It just turned into a really nasty back and forth, and unlike a lot of people out there, I'm not going to say that the developers are completely, how do I say this? They're not completely at fault because they kind of, spread some fuel onto the flame with the way their responses were set up. And some people can say it was more sarcastically to just take the piss out of some of these people. Like, whatever your stance is on the situation, whether you felt they handled it appropriately or not, or whether you felt these people are just harmless and need to shut up, it's irrelevant because this whole thing didn't need to happen in the first place. Because regardless of how you feel about a game coming to Nintendo Switch or not coming to Nintendo Switch, you have no right to go out there and basically spam these studios saying you want this game on the system or else. I was interested in your game or else. Your game would be so much better on Nintendo Switch, yada, yada, yada. Because we're not making those decisions. It comes down to the developer. And like it or not, there are a lot of reasons why a developer would not want to put their game on Nintendo Switch. So we're going to go through some of those reasons because some people still don't understand that a lot goes into a developer putting a game onto a platform outside of it just selling. Believe it or not, there are a couple of things that have to go into them releasing a game on a platform. It's not as easy as them waking up, seeing a system has sold 15 million units and going like, hey, I think I want my game on that system. No, there are just some games that are not going to be a good fit for the platform. And in some cases, we have to accept that as gamers, that not every single platform is going to get every single game. So let's explore some of those reasons. The one that I think is the most obvious, and I think a lot of Nintendo fans really need to, well, for the most part, shut up about because we're seeing this change. The Nintendo Switch is still in its infancy. Guys, just because the system has sold 15 million units and it's a success in less than 1 year, that doesn't mean that every single developer is on board. Do you want to know why? Because they don't have the time to make the games for the system. They don't have time to port the games on the system. You've heard countless stories of all these developers and studios that are scrambling to get original content out for the Switch, to get ports out for the Switch, and, well, what do you know? It takes time for those games to come out on the system. And a lot of developers, for the most part, if they are going to bring their game to the Nintendo Switch, they want to do it in a way that runs on their schedule, their terms. Some developers want to wait for their game to release on other platforms before they bring it to the Nintendo Switch because they'll have some downtime after the game comes out. They don't need to have the entire studio working on it, so they can put some effort or some funds into a Nintendo Switch version. Wouldn't that make some sense? Outside of them trying to develop a Switch version in tandem to PS4 and Xbox One as those versions are not ready yet? Yeah. Or the developer is working on the Nintendo Switch version right now, but they don't want to say anything because they want to surprise you guys with a stealth release date. How many damn indie games have we seen from these studios that have done that? They announce the game's coming to the Switch, and guess when it's out? In 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, in less than a month, I'm going to be able to play this game on the Switch. Whoa, that is insane. How many games get announced for the Nintendo Switch and you find out they're coming out in less than 2 months? So many of them. So many of them. And these developers keep quiet about it because I'm sure for the most part they want to keep it a surprise, or they're waiting for some type of marketing deal with Nintendo, or they're just the type of studio that doesn't want to talk about things until they're ready. Like, look at all of the developers who have said this game is not coming to this platform, and then the game ends up coming to that platform. And in some cases, they say one thing, and then 2 months later, hey, the game is out. Maybe that's what some of these developers are doing. There have been countless games that were announced for, hey, look at this, PlayStation 4, that people said would not come to the system. Why? Because you're on the developer's terms. And some of these developers want to be a bit secretive with their releases, and that is perfectly fine. I'm actually more a fan of that, the developer actually announcing the game when they're ready, as opposed to them announcing it. We gotta wait and ponder when the game is gonna come out on the system. Like with the Nintendo Wii U, and this is another reason why I think a lot of people need to kind of, shut up about it. Because as we know, as history is dictated when it comes to Nintendo, they're to blame for a lot of the third-party relations. They had those egregious business practices. But to the same degree, we have to take a lot of the third-party publishers to account, especially when they released a lot of gimped ports on the Wii U and the developers were whining, complaining while not putting their best foot forward with the Wii U versions. What you guys got to understand is that with these developers coming back to the system, they want to do it in the best way possible, because just because the system is selling, they know for a fact that that is probably not enough for them to put out their game and have it sell gangbusters. They probably want to go the extra mile and make sure it's a game worthy of Nintendo fans. Like Ubisoft, for example. Compare the effort they put into Zombie U on the Nintendo Wii U to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and I'm going to keep bringing this up because not only is it one of the best games on the Switch, but it is one of the best games that really highlights this notion of we have this major third-party studio who's working on this AAA exclusive, and it's really good, and it's not gimped, and it's not just put there for the sake of, hey, we have this game out in the system, it's a success. So, what's to stop some of these other studios from doing a similar thing with Mario plus Rabbids? Maybe they're working on these games and we just don't know it. Like, we've already seen that the Nintendo Switch is not a Wii U. And it's certainly not the Nintendo Wii, where the system is a success, but it doesn't have a lot of third-party support. Contrary to popular belief, you guys, just because the system sells does not mean the developer is going to want to put a game on the system. The Nintendo Wii sold crap ton of units. But since it wasn't on the same level of PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, it missed out on 95% of every major single game that came out. Every single one of them. Whether it was, the big smash hits from last generation like BioShock or Mass Effect, or just, middle of the road games from some studios, the Nintendo Wii missed out on them. The Nintendo Switch, on the other hand, is getting a lot of every type of game. It's getting every game you could think of. Heck, we got games like Doom and Skyrim running on Nintendo Switch. So it's a very different ball game. So just let these developers take their time and release the games on the system. But speaking of games that are on the system, we got to just come out here and say, let's be honest with ourselves. Maybe the Nintendo Switch, and the reason why developers can't bring the games to the system is because it's not capable from the hardware side of things. Yes, they were able to get Doom running on Nintendo Switch, but I will say this, as a person who loves Doom on Nintendo Switch, who has put more time into Doom on Nintendo Switch than on PlayStation 4, from a guy who's playing a really gimped version of Doom, the fact that they got it running on the system is a technical marvel, yes. But not every developer is going to want to go the extra mile to do that, to dumb down their game to that degree. Especially when you consider the fact that there are more games that are technically demanding than Doom. Maybe they just can't get them running on the system, or they don't want to do a crazy custom version of it. Like, I'm just being real, you guys. Nintendo Switch is a tablet. Yes, it's a tablet that is finally capable of giving us console quality experiences. Yes, that is true. But it comes at a cost of power. Like, I mean, look at some of the best looking games on Nintendo Switch and some of the best running games on Nintendo Switch. They come with their own set of compromises. And that's something that we have to expect considering what the system is. And I'm perfectly fine with not every game coming out on Nintendo Switch, especially if they're going to release in really, really bad states. Like, look at some of the exclusives. Zelda Breath of the Wild on release had a lot of performance issues that they needed to patch out. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I've talked about the performance issues. Great game, amazing game. But dang, those performance issues should not have happened. They really shouldn't have. And that's something that we have to accept as Nintendo Switch owners. Bayonetta 1 plus Bayonetta 2, they run better on the Switch than the Wii U, but not by much. They're not these crazy night and day remasters that we would see from PS3 to PS4. And again, it's something that I'm fine with because of what the Nintendo Switch is. But not a lot of developers are going to be okay with that. Some developers just don't want to dumb down their games to get them running on the system. Just because it can run on the system doesn't mean it'll run well. And that's something a lot of people need to understand. Just because it can show up on Nintendo Switch doesn't mean it's going to show up in the way that a lot of people want. But who knows? Things might change in the future. We might see the developers take more time out of their day to fine-tune and customize the Nintendo Switch version. Maybe Nintendo will work with them to try to get a proper competent version out there. They can do some type of crazy wizardry. You know what the first-party studios are capable in comparison to the third-party studios. You know, maybe these things will happen, but as it stands, you guys, being a Nintendo Switch owner, the best thing about it, something that I do love about this, and I see this happen more with the Nintendo Switch than with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, is the amount of games that are announced out of the blue. Like I mentioned before, give it time. Give it time. We already know the Switch isn't a failure. We know it's not another Wii U. We know it's going to be getting a lot more games. But all this harassment and stuff needs to stop. All this, oh, well, it's more powerful than the PS3 and 360. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Let the developers work on it. And if they see fit to bring the games to the system, cool. If they want to put a game out on the system to see if it'll sell well, like what Bandai Namco doing with Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and that game selling the best on Nintendo Switch, at least outside of, well, in Japan on PlayStation 4 and Switch, it sold more on the Switch after only being out on the Switch for a couple of months. Maybe that's them having incentive to put out fighters for Nintendo Switch. Guys, you gotta look deeper into this outside of just, we want the games on the system, we want the games on the system. It's admirable. Really, it is. I've done my fair share of, you know, top 10 list of games I want to see on the Switch. Fallout New Vegas and Persona 5, for example, would be amazing on the Switch. But I will live if they never come to the system. I will live if Bethesda decides to put out a new game on Nintendo Switch as opposed to Fallout New Vegas, even though they haven't crafted a game as good as Fallout New Vegas. Well, they didn't even make Fallout New Vegas. They just published it. Maybe the solution is to get Obsidian in here and work. They have all their games on the Switch. Yeah. But I'm going to end this video here. It's kind of getting redundant. You guys know what I'm talking about. For now, my name is NGS signing out. Like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace. Can we get Persona 4 You see, I'm going to stop while I'm somewhat ahead. At least in my head.